Hello, I'm Annalie, a painter based in the south of France. In my previous video, I talked about everything I created between March and April, and you may have seen these paintings. I painted them on MDF boards, which were quite thin. As they were meant for an exhibition, I just couldn't display them like that. You probably know that a framed artwork often sells more easily than an unframed one. This may less apply to canvases, but for flat artworks, it really is worth taking the time to frame them. So that's what I did. I spent a long time thinking about the best way to do this. I watched tutorials on YouTube on how to build my own floater frames, a type of framing that's often recommended. But the reality is that, although it looked easy enough, my family advised me against it. People in these videos generally use an electric miter saw, which makes very clean cuts. If you don't have one, they suggest using a manual miter saw as an alternative. As I didn't have professional equipment or the budget for it, I thought I'd go for a manual saw. I was quickly warned that this type of tool wears out quickly and isn't very precise either. I could easily have ended up with a frame with poorly fitted edges, making it look rather unaesthetic. Besides, I also risked making a mistake when cutting the angles of the frame edges, and I knew that would happen. So, to spare myself unnecessary trouble and expense, I finally decided to use a technique I knew very well, as it's one I learned when I was working in an art gallery. But enough chatter, let's get to the video, it will speak for itself. I bought in my local art shop a large sheet of mat board measuring 80 by 120 centimeters and 1.5 centimeters thick to make picture mounts, or passe-partout as you like to call it. I wanted it to be thick enough so that the glue wouldn't soak through the paper. These passe-partout were meant to go inside the 6 identical frames I bought. They measure 32 by 32 centimeters each for an internal size of 30 by 30 centimeters. To be as accurate as possible, I used the hardboard in the frames to measure the size of my mats. The hardboard wasn't quite 30 centimeters and the mat board was quite thick, so I was worried that the whole thing might not fit back into the frame if I cut my mats slightly too large. Of course, I marked the side that wouldn't be visible to avoid any pencil marks, which would have looked bad and been difficult to erase. Next came the cutting stage, and it got physical. I'll let you judge for yourselves from the groans I let out while cutting. I didn't expect it to be so physical. The mat was really thick and stiff, and I had to go over the same spots 6 or 7 times just to manage to cut through one side. I also quickly realized that I absolutely had to cut all the way through and not try to fold the paper to tear it off, otherwise the edges would tear and damage the visible side. I repeated the process 7 times, not 6, because I unfortunately had a minor accident with one of my passe-partout. It's nothing serious. I'll reuse it for something else in a smaller format. The result wasn't quite as perfect as I'd hoped, but it was still perfectly acceptable, especially as the edges were going to be hidden by a few millimeters once the mat was framed. But the hardest part was over, and it helped me build muscle at the same time. For your information, I also painted the sides of my paintings with a white Posca pen. As they were going to be visible once my artworks were framed, I wanted them to be as clean as possible. As you can see, the paint had run down some of them, which really honestly wasn't very aesthetic. It took me some time and the sound wasn't very pleasant to listen to. But look at how nice they are after covering them up. It's much better. Now we're on to the gluing stage. The weather was perfect for this. I was able to leave the window open to avoid breathing in the glue fumes while speeding up the drying time. I'll also let you admire this magnificent installation. Isn't this old, dirty, holy yellow sheet just the most magnificent thing? Anyway, joking aside, I preferred to protect my table from any potential glue stains. As you can see, I've removed the hardboards from my frames. These will actually serve as a base for gluing my mat boards. As for the glue, I used a tube of neoprene glue like this one. It's not the same brand as the one I used at the gallery, but it has exactly the same properties. It sticks to all kinds of materials, and as you can see, it's really easy to apply because it's very liquid. I just had to be careful because it tended to leave very fine strands of glue once applied. Here you can see me struggling to remove the strand that got stuck between my hardboard and the nozzle of the tube. Apart from that, there was really nothing complicated about it. You'll notice that I'm applying the glue a short distance from the edge of the hardboard. This is simply to prevent the glue from spilling over when I place the mat on top. The instructions also said to wait 10 minutes before sticking the surface together until the glue was no longer sticky. I didn't have to wait that long as the air was very hot and dry. I've sometimes waited too long when I was at the gallery and the glue wouldn't stick at all, which is rather annoying. This time I didn't have that problem. The two surfaces stuck together perfectly. Just a quick note, you really must position the materials correctly when assembling them, as the glue sets immediately and doesn't allow for any adjustments. I repeated the process 6 more times and there you go, 6 frames all ready for my pictures. I waited about half an hour for the glue to dry completely, then moved on to the next step, sticking my paintings onto the frames. This time I used this glue. Once again, it's almost the same glue I used at the gallery. It's just transparent instead of white. What made me choose this glue was its trigger. The other glues in the range didn't have one, and I really didn't want to buy a caulking gun. I find them very complicated to use and not very precise. And that's where it got tricky. I had to get my pictures stuck on as straight and centered as possible. At first, I made tiny, barely visible marks with a pencil to help me position the picture properly. In reality, I gave up on that idea, and you'll quickly see why. To stick my picture on, all I had to do was apply 4 generous dabs of glue to each corner. Once again, I left a bit of space from the edge, both to avoid any spillage and to allow me to reposition the picture without leaving any glue marks. The glue I'm using, unlike the previous one, is repositionable, which is particularly useful here. And now you'll understand why making marks beforehand didn't help me at all. It wasn't precise enough, and what's more, the passe-partout didn't have perfectly straight edges, so I had to keep going back with my ruler to make sure everything was just right. It was sometimes a matter of millimeters, but it was important to me that everything was perfectly aligned. It would have been such a shame if my painting had looked off once framed because of misalignment or poor centering. And in the end, I spent over 2 hours mounting my 6 pictures. I have to say, I preferred to take my time to make sure everything was right rather than having to buy everything again and start over. The instructions on the glue said that it would set immediately, but as I wasn't sure whether my pictures were completely flat, I wanted to make sure they stuck properly by placing heavy books on top of them. And I left them like that overnight. And then the moment of truth arrived. I removed my books, hoping that nothing had shifted. At first glance, everything looked fine, but I wouldn't be able to be sure until my paintings were framed. So here we are at last, the long-awaited moment, framing. Once again, I set up a wonderful workstation using old towels to avoid any damage to my frames and paintings. I removed everything from inside the frames, including the glass, then went to insert my paintings into the frames. I tightened the clips, wrote the title of the painting on the back of the frame, and there you go! All my paintings were framed. A painting looks so different when it's properly framed and showcased. I feel like it gives them a whole new dimension. As well as offering a fresh perspective, it transformed them into genuine collector's items. The fact that they are part of the series makes the whole collection all the more prestigious. I am very proud of what I've managed to create, and I hope you like the result just as much and that it gives you ideas and inspires you to frame your own paintings in this way too. Please let me know what you think in the comments and if you have any other framing suggestions. On that note, take care and see you soon.